Welcome to the Mental Health Bootcamp podcast, everyone. We are back after a week off of relaxation and vacationing. Isn't that right, you guys?
Yeah.
What were you guys doing? What was everyone off doing in this pandemic summer for fun?
Well, us up here in British Columbia, Canada, we just had a long weekend, so BC Day. I know Chris and I were away with our family for the weekend at our lake house.
Tell me about BC Day. Is that the day that BC declared its independence against the rest of Canada?
Chris, you can tell him.
No, not quite. I guess not every celebration is marked on independence there around. I think it's
Very
just
American thing, I guess.
just a celebration of, I guess, our province. I don't know how much depth there is to it. Like we needed a holiday, and it seemed like a good time for it.
I think it's very worthwhile. That is a beautiful, beautiful place you guys live. So you got away and got into the wilderness, got to see some of your beautiful province and enjoy the summertime up there.
Yeah, so about 3.5 hours away, we have this cabin. So lots of kayaking and swimming, and weather is quite hot. But really nice pace of the day. Play some pickleball in the morning with some neighbors down the way.
Can you describe what pickleball is?
Well, I'm pretty sure people know what pickleball is, isn't it? It's
Did you know what pickleball was?
I heard about it prior. Isn't it the fastest growing game in North America? It's a real hit.
It is. There are pickleball courts all around down here, actually.
Yeah, it's a real hit with the baby boomers there. So I think I pulled my groin playing it, so that wasn't the best, but it was a fantastic time. But as Joanna mentioned, lots of quality time with the family and a really nice laid back pace.
A little bit of trivia, courtesy of my son, who learned pickleball in his PE class last year, that the term pickleball actually came from the family who made it. Their dog Pickles used to be as they were playing this kind of table tennis thing on the court there. The dog would chase after the ball, and so the dog Pickles became the name of the game, pickleball. Isn't that interesting?
That's amazing.
That's great.
Joanna, did you know that? Smiling and.
Well, you know what? Our mom actually shared that fun fact with us, I think, this past weekend. I don't know if Chris was there, but I remember hearing about it. Very random. It has nothing to do with the ball, the sport itself, just about the family dog, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And
speaking of family dogs, I think Ryan, our last podcast, he has some big news for us.
yes, my family did acquire a new family dog, a beautiful Labradoodle named Lexi. 9 weeks old and 15 pounds of pure love. What a wonderful, joyous thing that this dog is to our household.
That's awesome.
Yes. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but puppies don't like to sleep at night. So there's that too.
Oh, I remember when there was 2 puppies at the same time. Yeah. Oh, it's fun, isn't it?
Oh boy. Yes. And so then as the puppy owner, of course, no sleep. So this has been kind of a surreal sort of week for me.
So are you like delirious right now? Are you
delirious? Yeah, a little sleep deprived.
Okay.
But
Time for the ambush then.
You get time for the ambush, right? Of course. No, we're loving the puppy, having a lot of fun. Looking forward to training her and loving her and just making her part of the family. It's been a lot of fun. So very happy to join the ranks of dog owners, for sure. So I guess we should get down to business here. We got some making up to do. We weren't here last week. Our listening public is just hungry to hear what the Mental Health Bootcamp podcast has to say, to share what wisdom we have to drop. So what's the ambush that we have for us tonight, and who's giving the ambush, by the way?
That would be me, Joanna.
Oh, all right.
Does anyone else feel like they're on like Family Feud or something right now? Like you're kind of like on edge, ready to pounce. Like somebody's gonna like ask you a question, and you have to be on your game and think in a creative manner? Like that's how I'm
Yeah,
feeling
like
right now. Like, is there a button?
you might get hit with some like acceptance versus forgiveness or something.
Oh, this is, this is pretty intense. So we're
All
just
right.
You
just
send it, Joe?
belonging it.
It is on its way.
Okay,
To Ryan.
from Canada to the States, and here we are. All right, here it is. All right, everyone, the ambush. Ready? Stress, stress, stress. What happens when you get stressed? What are your go-to ways of de-stressing? And a follow-up question, what daily or weekly rituals or routines are important for you when it comes to maintaining your mental health? Oh boy. And then any tips for those whose usual routines have been sidelined because of COVID, like job loss, kids doing school or work at home, or managing kids at home and having less free time. So wow, we've got a big old stress topic here tonight, everybody. Let's dive in. What happens when you get stressed?
So how do you know when you're stressed? Like what happens to you when you're stressed, whether mentally, physically?
Okay, just checking. Not like academic answers.
Well, I can
We're
chime
keep-
in. Go ahead,
Yeah.
guys.
No, go ahead.
I'm just going to say for me, I think I notice stress physiologically in a lot of ways. I notice stress when if I'm pretty stressed, I'll have a difficult time sleeping. I'll notice that I usually, some people eat more, some people eat less. I actually eat less when I'm stressed out. I just don't have the appetite. I'm kind of I'm preoccupied with whatever it is that I have to get done. And I have my thoughts kind of race with all the things. I'm always kind of planning to-do lists and trying to figure out, okay, what has to happen next? What am I going to have to do? There's a bit of anxiety that goes along with it as well. I think stress and anxiety are pretty closely wound together. And I tend to feel a little anxious of, can I get it done in the amount of time I have?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's the heartbeat speeds up a bit. The breathing becomes shallow. Sometimes I catch myself not breathing at all. Just tension in various parts of the body. And I think for me too, my mind starts to race a bit. Having a hard time focusing on what's going on in the moment. Kind of getting flooded by various thoughts or things that I need to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. So similar, yeah. Preoccupation with whatever is the stressful thing, the problem at hand, or the emotion that's happening. Very visceral for me, typically. So I feel a lot in the body, and it can come quite quickly. I feel like when it's a moderate level of stress, like kind of low, moderate, and it simmers, then I can manage it quite a bit better. But if there's like a spike of stress, then I'll have a spike of visceral. So might get tearful or just kind of shut down, difficulty concentrating or focusing, eating gets thrown off, sleep might get thrown off. My sleep is typically pretty good, which I'm lucky for. When I was younger, I used to get cold sores when I was stressed out. And I still get cold sores, but now they're like literally related to the cold or wind or like weather patterns. Yeah, so strong physiological ones. Not wanting to do the things that you know are good for you. Like, so that kind of happens for me with stress, like not wanting to work out as much or accomplish things or do things that I know will make me feel good. There might need to be a few days of just not doing anything before I can really do those things. Yeah.
Okay.
Joanna?
Gosh, and I know stress can range so much in terms of having a little bit of stress to major stresses. For me, I notice myself, it depends. And I know Chris has, as a loving brother, has called me out sometimes when I can get irritable when I get stressed. I might be a little bit more short with people, or I might be a bit quick to jump at people. That's not all the time, but I definitely notice that happens. So I think I just want to normalize that a little bit. I tend to, even prepping for thinking about a topic or leading up to this podcast today, I just had a friend over and then I just needed to be by myself. I found I was kind of getting a little bit worked up. And so I was just like, I just need solo time and not to have anyone around. So that's something I definitely notice when I get stressed. I just want to kind of be by myself. So that's a big sign for me. And like Brooke said a little bit, I sometimes tend to avoid the thing. If things pile up for me, I'm a big procrastinator. And so especially that kind of is a big thing that happens for me when I get stressed.
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry to hear that this ambush was stressing you out. That's
You
a
know
bummer.
what? Just a tiny bit. And it wasn't too much. I think I just kind of changed my topic at the last minute. And so, yeah, it wasn't too much. It wasn't like, it was a very minor, but then I just found I kind of took time by myself and was able to focus, and just things around me, noises and stuff and distractions were extra, I was extra sensitive to it. So I think that happens to me as well in stressful situations.
Joe, you mentioned a little bit about the kind of interpersonal ramifications of stress, right? It makes you kind of withdraw, makes you kind of want to pull away. Does anyone else feel anything happen relationally when you're feeling stressed out? Like I can get irritable. I can become like a little short, little snippy sometimes with even the ones I love if I'm feeling particularly stressed out.
Yeah.
That's just because I'm American. I don't know.
You know, I think it's important to distinguish too that stress often has a negative connotation. But there's, I don't know if you guys have heard these types of categories, but eustress versus distress. So it's how you interpret the stress, right? So I used to organize parties and fundraisers and stuff, and I was definitely in a stress state, but I would see it's more of a eustress state where my body was escalated like the way that I described before, but I would interpret that as more of a positive type of energy with my body, right? Whereas distress, if I have a lot of things on the go, then you know, I may interpret that as more of a negative type of situation or state, right?
Well, sure. I mean, stress is meant as a motivating factor. So if everything was taken care of, you would actually be very unmotivated. There would be no reason to do anything, but it's the stress that generates the motivation. So even when you're looking at stress levels and performance, then it's the bell-shaped curve, right? And then you want to be right in the sweet spot of the curve. So if you're a student and you have an exam, you need stress to actually perform at your best. If you don't have enough, you underperform, and if you have too much, you underperform. So you kind of have to find, and athletes as well. So you have to find that sweet spot for sure. But yes, also Ryan, I do get irritable with family and friends, and the dogs barking are more irritating, or small hiccups feel like a really big deal all of a sudden. So everything, like there's a spotlight on everything, and if it's not done properly, then I'm going to be very irritated at it. Yeah. So less tolerant, less patient, less resilient to hiccups, daily hiccups, those sorts of things.
Just to piggyback on that for a second, I love what you guys are talking about with eustress and all of that. Maybe something for people to listen to if they're interested in more of that is Kelly McGonigal's work. She wrote a book called The Upside of Stress and has a great TED Talk on stress and how really one of the most harmful parts of stress is if you view it as harmful. If you're looking at stress as something that's actually like a challenge, like a hill to climb, you know, something to conquer, then it's actually beneficial for you. But if you're viewing it as something that's really harmful for you, then it is. Interestingly enough.
Great. I think it's called How to Make Stress Your Friend, and a fantastic TED Talk.
Yeah,
and it's crazy if you interpret it as bad for you, it really does have some negative physical consequences, right?
that's right.
Stuff for sure.
So to the second point here, which is what are your go-to ways of de-stressing? How do you actually go about de-stressing? Anyone?
Well, because for me, it's awareness is always first, like just realizing that I'm stressed. Because sometimes you're so caught up in it that you don't realize that your body is very escalated. So physiologically, or your body is quite worked up. So for me, it's first off recognizing it and then choosing to do something to calm myself down. So when I feel stress, as I mentioned, my mind is racing a bit. So it's tough to jump in there and try to shift those thoughts without calming the body first. So I once took a 7-hour course on breathing. It's probably one of the more boring things I've ever done. And 5 seconds in or 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out can again calm the body down, slows down the heart rate, sends signals up to your brain that things are okay. And then I'll try to maybe shift my mind after that.
a boring course, but I hope it was beneficial, right?
Extremely beneficial. It's amazing how beneficial breathing is, and I think that's a whole other topic for our podcast here. But yeah.
Very nice. Brooke, what do you
Yeah.
have to discuss?
Yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
Okay, yeah, so I'm a proponent of do what feels right. And so I typically, like awareness, number one, you have to be aware that you're feeling something, stress or pressure or tension or whatever it is. And I think like for me, I have to kind of evaluate what I need in that moment. So if I need to feel the feels, I'll feel the feels and honor it and sit with it. So recently I've had like a big stress, which I'm not going to go into, but I had to feel the feels for a few days and sit with it. And during that time, completely unmotivated, nothing got done. And I'm a very action oriented, like to keep busy kind of person. But there comes a time after, a day or two, once the feels have been felt, to say, okay, now you got to do something. And then it's, for me, I like to tease out the problem versus the emotion. So sure, there's a reason why the stress is happening, but I like to focus on managing the stress rather than focusing on the problem, if that makes any sense. So the problem could be whatever it is, but so recently how I managed it after I felt the feels is I did things that I enjoy, which I enjoy doing wonky things. So I washed my car and I mowed the lawn and I went grocery shopping and made sure I ate a lot of vegetables, and I made sure I read in the sun, and I drank a lot of water, and connected socially with friends. So some of those things aren't so wonky, more so mowing the lawn, washing the car.
But good examples. It just shows that for some people,
that like would have solved the problem, like why the stress was happening. It was literally just to manage the stress. So I like to focus on the emotion itself and manage the emotion rather than getting fixated on solving the problem.
Interesting stuff. For me, I would say that my natural tendency when I'm very stressed is to curl up in a ball and just do nothing. That's what I would want to do. That's where
me too.
gravity pulls me towards that, like just being in a ball on the couch and not going anywhere. But I've learned through many years that doesn't actually help. So what I have to push myself to do is express. And for me, expressing comes in the form of either physical exercise, going for a good run or a walk or something that's going to be kind of vigorous for me to let something out. Talking it out with a friend or a therapist or some trusted loved one that I can really just kind of lay it all out there. And I might just have to say, hey, look, I'm not looking for a solution. I just need to vent. So let me just talk blah, blah, blah for a few minutes, let me let it out, throw it out there for a little while. I've also been kind of a long time journaler. So I like to write things out as well. I like to put words on paper. That helps me to express, and it also helps me problem solve sometimes. I mean, sometimes I'm not even planning on problem solving, but as I write something out, I realize, oh, I'm actually figuring this out. Maybe I have a little direction here to find a solution. And I'm also in favor of artistic expression to express things. So you guys already noted that I have a guitar back here. I might play some angry guitar or some, sad guitar or whatever it might be. And that really for me helps me to get something out, get something that's inside of me out of me for a while, and brings a lot of relief. That's my expression.
For me, I think there's a little bit of it. I think I like Brooke's kind of differences with focusing on the problem versus just dealing with the emotion at hand. I think if I'm dealing with the emotion at hand, I personally, if I'm feeling stressful, I just need to be low key. So that could be just kind of distracting myself, or maybe watching something on Netflix, or just being on my phone for a little bit. It could be getting outside in nature or just around the block if I'm not able to get into the woods at all. That's a big thing for me for de-stressing. Like, nature is very calming, as it is for many people. And there could be the time after having more time for myself is to reach out to a friend, like you mentioned, Ryan, in terms of just being able to chat about it. And then there are the times where focusing on the actual problem does help me a little, whereas trying to have a bit of a plan, but it's just more the follow through for me, but that's a whole other topic. But having some kind of action steps helps me grasp it and make it seem less scary and a little bit smaller. That sometimes helps me out quite a bit.
Yeah, I totally agree that eventually you need to go back to the problem.
For sure.
Have those steps and make it more tangible.
Mm-hmm.
Step one, I think we're all kind of in the same boat. You got to manage the emotion before you can really take a look at the problem and see it for what it is, like to gain perspective on the problem.
Yeah.
It's not as scary, but if you're trying to gain perspective in a stressed or anxious state, then it's going to be really, really hard to do.
And that's a good point, because I think some people, if they're not being aware of their stress or they're letting it kind of simmer, it does come out in different ways, right? Whether anger or it just, they're further burnout, really, if they're not really acknowledging and trying to help themselves through it.
Yeah, but also in the short term too, like Brooke talked about that bell curve, you get into that sweet spot there. But if your body's too escalated, the energy in your brain flows away from where it needs to be,
Mm-hmm.
away from the top part of the neocortex where all that knowledge and logic and rationality is, down to more of the limbic areas where you're more likely to fixate and ruminate and kind of be stuck, right? So it's kind of tough to, I feel, jump into problem solving if your body is still quite escalated or worked up, right? So kind of the calm the body, shift the mind type of mentality tends to work quite well.
So are we seeing a pattern here where it's acceptance and then calming the emotion and then problem solving? Is that sort of the...
You have to forgive yourself for the
awareness, always awareness, right? So many
awareness.
people, to Joanna's point, don't know they're stressed.
Yeah.
And they're shocked by that. They go see their doctors and say, hey, I think you're stressed. Like, no, not me. And then they realize it, like, wait a minute, maybe I am stressed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, awareness,
Yes.
and then emotional management, right? And then getting to the problem solving part of this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If the problem solving is appropriate, I think there's going to be some things that you're going to be stressed about that don't need to be solved. It's just life kind of takes you through its twists and turns, right?
There we go. So are there any rituals or routines, anything that comes up in the day-to-day life, or any sort of way that you can structure your week maybe that will help you kind of stress-proof yourself, or at least maybe not stress-proof, but help you have a good buffer so you can manage stress more easily during the week? Anything you guys do?
Joanna, why don't you start? I don't think you've started yet. Like, been the first one to answer. Yeah.
Cookie dough, Joe. Cookie dough.
Cookie dough, Joe.
Well, I do love cookie dough. Yeah, I guess for me, it would be having some time where I'm just alone at home is a big, I guess I think of balance when it comes to routines or a ritual that might help me kind of manage stress or keep it at bay would be just time to rejuvenate. I kind of recharge that way. You could think of, ourselves having batteries, and there's certain things that deplete our batteries and certain things that recharge them. So I just make sure I'm adding in things in my week or the odd little thing in my day-to-day that helps me recharge, because I feel like that kind of combats stress getting to me more. So alone time at home to kind of just recharge, or if I'm able to have some movement in my day, that's a big thing for me. So that usually starts in the morning with some kind of workout. But I'm fortunate to be able to work that in. Some people, time is not on their side, but I guess it's what you make of it. But yeah, those would be my few things.
Nice. I will start off with a shout out to episode 1. If you haven't listened, you may want to listen to that one, because that gives the basics of mental health, which are sleep, nutrition, and exercise, right? And that's any way that you can improve any of those areas will be beneficial for stress management, right? Because it just gives you more resources, more to draw from. When you're depleted in any of those areas, I think you're more susceptible to feeling stressed out. And so those are kind of the basic building blocks. I would say for me, I need to have kind of a consistent social contact, like hanging out with my Canadian friends once a week, and hang out with other friends, keeping in touch with friends and family, keeping text chains and emails and all that kind of stuff going. I like to feel connected. If I feel disconnected, I think that's more stressful for me. So I'm kind of a social person, and I'd like to have that as part of my life. And again, back to the physical stuff. I notice after a few days if I haven't been physically active, and I think I'm more susceptible to stress if I haven't been.
I think for me, two things that pop into my mind besides what's already been kind of mentioned is I need to step away from things a bit, maybe go get some fresh air, go for a walk. But I like to create a to-do list of things that I need to accomplish. So when I feel stressed, my mind races, and then I lose track of all the things I need to accomplish. So when I get it down, I have this black book or a book that and I write things down the old-fashioned way. And when I accomplish things, I scratch it off. And it actually gives a lot of satisfaction to do so. So when I see all the things I need to accomplish, that helps de-escalate or calm down the stress a bit. And then when I get a bit of momentum, I even achieve one or two things on there. And sometimes I put really easy things on there, things I'm going to do regardless, just to get that momentum. That really helps shift that stress or shift it towards something more productive.
Is it my turn? I freaking love structure and routine so much. So I am like creature of habit. I like to have my bedtime and my wake up time and what time I eat my meals, and maybe structure and routine, or maybe controlling. I don't know. We can discuss that on a different podcast, but I like that. So I like to maintain that. And I know if that gets like extremely thrown off, then I will be thrown off. So that's one safeguard. Definitely like the sleep, eating, exercise, so self-care stuff. And then for me, it's really important to engage in hobbies and interests outside of work. So trying to leave, like having good boundaries around when I'm at work and when I am not at work, having those like hours. So I'm not going to return client emails on the weekends, because that is not going to help me manage my stress. I'm going to get back into work mode. So instead, I'm going to make sure when I'm done work, I am now engaging in personal life. I'm going to call my parents, or I'm going to do the things that I enjoy at home. I'm going to do something artistic, whatever it might be, just hobbies and interests. Trying new things, hiking, getting in nature, trying to do those things as much as possible, and trying to gear away from the work stuff. So that's kind of what I do.
I like it. I like it. So you're a creature of habit, Brooke. You like your routines, but as you know, with COVID, the routines are oftentimes thrown out the window, especially in big ways when people are losing jobs, or the kids are at home and they're having to teach them from home. So many major, the regular social outlets I was talking about, can't really go hang out with people at the restaurant or the bar or something like that. So so how do you think we can manage these kind of stress management routines without having a routine? When they've been taken away, what can people do to sort of to cope with the fact that their regular coping mechanisms aren't available any longer?
I'll just quickly interject, Ryan, quickly. The reason I kind of added that one on the end is because I think probably most of us have worked with clients. Well, everyone's been impacted by COVID, right?
Yes.
And so that, there's multiple clients I've talked to who their usual go-to ways of de-stressing are not possible anymore. Whether that yoga studio is not open, or they're not able to see their friends as much because their friends are at risk, or it's just a lot of their outlets are now reduced, and they're at home. They ruminate the usual day-to-day stresses. They now don't have that escape from, or maybe their coping skills just are not up to par because they don't have enough of a balance. Or, someone else in my life who, they lost their job and for temporarily, and then they were at home most of the time with, their daughter, and had to be the main caregiver there. And so they were then unable to have time for themselves to go out and do things. So what can we recommend to people who are kind of out of sorts in terms of the routine? Are there little things they can do, or things they can bring into their day that are possible? I don't know.
I think it's a really good question, like the one that you're asking. And I like it because there's there's so much opportunity out there to try new things. Like, sure, maybe they're used to going to the gym, but now they're going to go for walks around their neighborhood. Or maybe now's the time to try mindfulness or meditation practice, or maybe now's the time to try art or reading or journaling. Like, there's other things to start expanding the toolbox. I think the tricky part for people is that because they're already under stress, it's harder to learn a new thing. And the new thing isn't going to be as effective because you haven't practiced it long enough. So it's not going to be as fulfilling, or it might not feel as effective right away because it's newer. Over time, there's going to be a development. Like, it's just, it kind of goes to the, like, really fostering curiosity or love of learning, right? Like, if you can then become curious about other opportunities or chances right now, you might find new coping strategies that you haven't really found before. It's just being patient with them until they actually grab on, right?
I like that, kind of like shifting your perspective a bit and saying, you know, because of COVID, my life drastically shifted and allowed me to actually explore, you know, whatever that creative outlet might be.
Yeah.
But I, you know, from my perspective too, I think it's already been mentioned as well, as connection, right? Right now we're connecting through Zoom, and Zoom has become normalized. I don't know how many people actually relied on video chat prior to COVID. Some people did, but trying to think out of the box when it comes to connection, because you got to remember that when you feel stressed, certain stress hormones flood your body, like cortisol, and the arch nemesis of cortisol is oxytocin. That's what's released when you connect with someone you care about, someone that cares about you. So really, really trying to think out of the box in terms of how you can get that connecting time.
I like that. Brooke, I really like this idea of I mean, here you are, there's the woman who's the creature of habit saying, you know, maybe this time is the time to look outside of what your regular routines have been and to try to adopt something else, because you're right. I mean, instead of saying, oh, I can't get to the gym, so I'm just going to, you know, feel really upset about not going to the gym or try to find some substitute that doesn't measure up. Well, maybe I can try mindfulness instead. Maybe I can try, you know, some of these other things that people talk about that I've never really tried before.
I have met more of my neighbors, maybe not even formally yet, but said hello to them or have seen them because more people are walking around the neighborhood.
Oh, so true.
So being able to walk my dogs and say hi, or knowing, you know, this couple walks by my house every day at this time, and I don't know their names yet, but we always say hello and exchange pleasantries. And I never saw them before COVID. I had no idea that these people lived in my neighborhood. So that might be eventually a budding relationship, right? I might join them for a walk one day when it's safe. So I think there's just so many silver linings that we haven't quite seen yet or honored yet.
Opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So try not to measure a successful day based on pre-COVID life.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Very good point.
Change those measurements a bit.
Change your schema.
Yes.
And
Framework.
it just, and you're normalizing it, right? Because you have to be kind to yourself and show extra self-compassion, especially because it's stressful times, and you're going to be maybe dealing with a lot more stress or just a bit more vulnerable to that. And I think expecting that for yourself and being kind to yourself, maybe not expecting so much. And like you said, Chris, comparing life before to now, because that could add to stress in a different way, right? Back to that acceptance.
I'll also speak to another piece of this, which is like the homeschooling your kids, or you know, being a part of that, because that's not trading in one thing for another, one coping mechanism for another. That's just an additional stressor straight out, right?
Yeah.
It's not something I
when
had
you're working from home.
And working from home. Working from home, and then
oh my goodness, my heart goes out to you.
Yeah, if listeners didn't hear Brooke right there, she said, yeah, if you have to work from home and are homeschooling children at the same time.
Whew.
Yeah.
Well, that's hard. I mean, but honestly, my heart goes out even more to the people who have to homeschool kids at home, but can't stay at home because they have a job outside the home that they can't get away from.
No, for sure.
And that's a large portion of society right now, and they are wondering, what in the world are we going to do? And that's even more.
My friends and I don't have any children of my own, but many of my friends do have children. So we started a book club. Granted, we only meet once a month, but there's, the majority of them are moms and they work from home and they have to homeschool their kids. And granted, it's not an everyday or an every week thing, but they have a space once a month to come and we talk about whatever for an hour and a half. And then we talk about the book for about 45 minutes. And then we pick a new book. And nobody has their husbands or their kids or whatever. And it's just a safe place to be them. And I know that doesn't fix anything, but at least it gives a point of connection. And it gives a point of discussion that wasn't COVID.
Yeah.
So there wasn't, there is 45 minutes or an hour where we're talking about something that isn't, we're talking about a book. We're not talking about COVID.
That's true.
And I think too, if you have to shift kind of what you were doing to de-stress, you can now utilize like 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there and really kind of be purposeful with any time you have to yourself, right? Especially if you're a parent and Ryan, you could speak to this most in terms of your experience of how you had to work from home and kind of take care of your boys. But you really got to be creative, and it could just be a little moment here or there to really find some rejuvenation.
Yes. And I think that's true. I think creativity is a big part of this, but honestly, I think one of the biggest muscles to be building during this time is grace. Kind of a self-compassion and forgiveness, because a lot of us put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do this perfectly, to be, to hit it out of the park. And if we don't, then we're failing and all of that. But I think the thing that gives me a little bit of relief during this homeschooling time and a lot of other challenging times right now is just to know, this is bizarre. No one trained for this. We're all in this together. And I think there are going to be a lot of people dropping the ball or, temporarily or one day at a time, trying to figure out how do we get this thing, how do we get through this year? And, perfection is not really the goal. I think it's more, survival and staying intact and kind of trying to keep ourselves together and keep our family together is really the best we can do.
Well, maybe, taking your dropping the ball metaphor, if this was a game, we're making up the rules as we go along, and maybe dropping the ball was part of the rules. Maybe it's part of the framework, maybe it's part of the game, because there isn't a preset game to this. We're making it up as we go along. And dropping the ball might be a completely normal, natural part of this game.
That is a great point. That's right. Maybe we've gone from baseball to soccer all of a sudden. And now we're not supposed to catch the ball. We're supposed to let it drop on the ground and kick it.
Maybe it's rugby. Maybe it's, who knows? Maybe it's pickleball. Maybe it's a combination of all those things.
Or it's a game where everyone actually drops the ball and they all have to pick it back up. You're not alone in it.
Yeah. This isn't keep the balloon in the air.
I like this. This is really good. Guys, what is our call to action? What can we ask people to do regarding stress? We've talked about so many different topics regarding stress tonight. How do we manage it? What does it look like? What kind of routines do we have to help kind of manage it and protect us against it? What can we ask our listeners to do this week? What's something practical we can ask them to do regarding their stress?
I'm going to go back to awareness. So my call to action or my suggestion would be to ask yourself at least once a day, but preferably more than that, like set a timer for maybe 3 times a day or 4. And when the timer goes off, to say, how am I doing right now? How am I feeling? What am I noticing? Am I holding tension in my body? Is my heart racing? How's my temperature? Am I clenching my jaw? Am I laughing? Am I irritable? What's my emotional temperature in this moment? So trying to start to build that awareness.
Like for me, Ron, you foreshadowed mine. That is to do some writing. So Jamie Pennebaker, University of Texas, we've been researching this for like 27 years or something like that. And he said 20 minutes for 4 days in a row. Start off with whatever is bugging you the most in the moment and just let it flow. Don't worry about spelling or punctuation or sentence structure. No one's going to grade it. Once the 20 minutes is up, you can read over if you want to. But it's often liberating just to rip it up or delete it if you're typing it or burn it, but just don't burn your house down. So 20 minutes, 4 days in a row, an amazing way to de-escalate or to help with stress.
He actually learned that from Adler.
I'm not surprised by that.
And who?
I'm going to recommend people listen to Kelly McGonigal's or watch Kelly McGonigal's TED Talk, How to Make Stress Your Friend.
Great one, yeah.
20 minutes that you won't forget. I think it's educational and enlightening and entertaining, and I'm gonna include it. We can include it in the links at the description of this podcast. So I'm gonna put that there.
And I guess I'll round up here and encourage you to laugh. I think laughter is a great de-stressor. And it's so if there's happens to be a quick video you can find or of a comedian you like, or just a clip on YouTube or something that kind of tickles that funny bone, just take a moment out of your day and yeah, have some laughter. It'll bring a smile to your face and it'll make you feel great.
The best thing too is when Joanna laughs, everybody laughs.
Oh,
She
it's so
has
true.
the greatest laugh.
Like genuine
Yeah, guttural.
Oh.
Yeah.
I suppose you can't really force it right now, right?
No,
That
you probably wouldn't even hear it because I more just my face kind of implodes and I turn really red.
Air comes out and tears.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sight to see. So unfortunately for our listeners, not today.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you like what you hear, please tell someone else about it. We want to build up this little community. Why not? Otherwise, take a look at our boot camp at www.mentalhealthbootcamp.com. Email us at info@mentalhealthbootcamp.com. Look us up on Instagram or Facebook. And that's a wrap for the night, everybody. Have a stress-free week and laugh like Joanna.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.